It started with a single transmission, a faint signal intercepted by a radio telescope in New Mexico. The team at the observatory dismissed it as background noise until the pattern repeated, precise and deliberate. Dr. Ellen Marquez, the lead astrophysicist, was the first to recognize its significance. The signal wasn't random, it was a language. For weeks, she worked tirelessly to decode it, assembling a team of linguists, mathematicians, and AI experts. What they found sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The signal was a message. We are coming. At first, the message sparked hope. Was this an invitation? A sign of advanced beings reaching out to share knowledge? But as more signals were intercepted, the tone became clear. The messages grew more direct, more urgent. Prepare for integration. The world watched in awe and fear as the first ships appeared in the night sky. They were massive, triangular crafts that moved with silent precision, their surfaces shimmering like liquid metal. Governments scrambled to respond, deploying fleets and fighter jets, but the ships remained motionless, as if waiting. Ellen found herself at the center of the storm. Her team had become the world's leading experts on the alien transmissions, and she was summoned to Washington to brief the president. "These beings are far more advanced than us," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it already. But they're not here to negotiate." "Then what do they want?" the president asked. Ellen hesitated. "To conquer." As the days passed, the ships began their descent, hovering above major cities across the globe. Panic set in as governments declared martial law, but no amount of preparation could have stopped what came next. The first attack was swift and devastating. In Los Angeles, beams of light rained down from the ships, disintegrating entire blocks in seconds. New York followed, then Tokyo, London, and São Paulo. The aliens didn't discriminate. They targeted infrastructure, communication hubs, and military bases with surgical precision. But it wasn't just destruction. The beams left behind strange metallic growths that spread like a virus, assimilating buildings and machinery into grotesque alien forms. The world's greatest cities became unrecognizable within hours. Ellen watched the chaos unfold from the safety of a fortified bunker, her mind racing. The transmissions had stopped, but their meaning was clear. Humanity wasn't being destroyed, it was being reshaped. "They're terraforming," she said to her team, "but not the land, the cities. They're turning our world into theirs." Her words hung heavy in the air, a grim reminder of the scale of the invasion. The question wasn't whether humanity could fight back. It was whether there was anything left to fight for. It started with a single transmission, a faint signal intercepted by a radio telescope in New Mexico. The team at the observatory dismissed it as background noise until the pattern repeated, precise and deliberate. Dr. Ellen Marquez, the lead astrophysicist, was the first to recognize its significance. The signal wasn't random, it was a language. For weeks, she worked tirelessly to decode it, assembling a team of linguists, mathematicians, and AI experts. What they found sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The signal was a message. We are coming. At first, the message sparked hope. Was this an invitation? A sign of advanced beings reaching out to share knowledge? But as more signals were intercepted, the tone became clear. The messages grew more direct, more urgent. Prepare for integration. The world watched in awe and fear as the first ships appeared in the night sky. They were massive, triangular crafts that moved with silent precision, their surfaces shimmering like liquid metal. Governments scrambled to respond, deploying fleets and fighter jets. But the ships remained motionless, as if waiting. Ellen found herself at the center of the storm. Her team had become the world's leading experts on the alien transmissions, and she was summoned to Washington to brief the president. "These beings are far more advanced than us," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it already, but they're not here to negotiate." "Then what do they want?" the president asked. Ellen hesitated. "To conquer." As the days passed, the ships began their descent, hovering above major cities across the globe. Panic set in as governments declared martial law, but no amount of preparation could have stopped what came next. The first attack was swift and devastating. In Los Angeles, beams of light rained down from the ships, disintegrating entire blocks in seconds. New York followed, then Tokyo, London, and São Paulo. The aliens didn't discriminate. They targeted infrastructure, communication hubs, and military bases with surgical precision. But it wasn't just destruction. The beams left behind strange, metallic growths that spread like a virus, assimilating buildings and machinery into grotesque alien forms. The world's greatest cities became unrecognizable within hours. Ellen watched the chaos unfold from the safety of a fortified bunker, her mind racing. The transmissions had stopped, but their meaning was clear. Humanity wasn't being destroyed, it was being reshaped. "They're terraforming," she said to her team, "but not the land, the cities. They're turning our world into theirs." Her words hung heavy in the air, a grim reminder of the scale of the invasion. The question wasn't whether humanity could fight back. It was whether there was anything left to fight for. The world descended into chaos as the alien invaders continued their methodical takeover. Cities became alien strongholds, their once familiar skylines replaced with metallic spires that pulsed with a strange green energy. The air was thick with tension, and the ground trembled beneath the weight of humanity's collective fear. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity refused to surrender. Ellen Marquez had become an unlikely leader. From the underground bunker in Colorado, she coordinated with what remained of the global governments. The United Nations was gone, most world leaders were missing or presumed dead, and the military was fractured. Still, scattered groups of soldiers, scientists, and civilians banded together, united by one common goal: survival. "Our first priority is understanding their technology," Ellen told her team during a tense briefing. The room was crowded with military officers, engineers, and hackers. "If we can figure out how their systems work, we might stand a chance." One breakthrough came when a small alien craft was shot down near the Nevada desert. The resistance scrambled to secure the wreckage before the invaders could retrieve it. Ellen and a team of engineers dissected the craft in a hidden lab, their discoveries both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The ship's interior was biomechanical, a seamless blend of organic material and advanced machinery. Its controls responded to touch, thought, and even emotion, as if it were an extension of its pilot. "This isn't just technology," Ellen said, running her hand over the ship's pulsating surface. "It's alive." The most important discovery, however, was a piece of alien communication hardware, a small crystalline device that seemed to interface directly with the ship's systems. Using this, Ellen's team managed to intercept and decode fragments of the invaders' network. What they found was chilling. The aliens, known as the Kashel, were a collective consciousness. Each member was a node in a vast network, their thoughts and actions perfectly synchronized. The terraforming wasn't. The Resistance's first victory had emboldened humanity, but it had also made the stakes painfully clear. The Kashel were relentless, their response to the attack swift and devastating. Entire regions went dark as alien forces retaliated, dismantling communications and obliterating resistance cells. Ellen Marquez knew that humanity couldn't win alone. They needed more than just brute force. They needed allies. In the days following the attack on the Chicago Spire, Ellen received an encrypted message from an unexpected source. It wasn't from Earth, it was from orbit. "We are not your enemy," the message read. "Meet us at these coordinates. Bring no weapons." The message was signed with a single symbol, one Ellen recognized from the alien ship they had studied. It wasn't Kashel, it was something else. The Resistance leadership was divided. Many saw it as a trap, another Kashel ploy to eliminate key figures. But Ellen believed otherwise. If they wanted to destroy us, they wouldn't need to send a message, she argued. This could be our only chance to understand what we're up against. Reluctantly, the leaders agreed. Ellen and a small team boarded a stolen alien transport and flew to the rendezvous point deep in the Nevada desert. The coordinates led to an abandoned military base, its hangars empty and windswept. As the transport landed, a shimmering figure appeared in the distance. It was humanoid, but not entirely human. Its body was cloaked in a metallic sheen that seemed to ripple like liquid under the desert sun. "I am Saran," the figure said, its voice resonating both aloud and in Ellen's mind. I am Cashel. But not. The resistance team raised their weapons instinctively, but Ellen stepped forward. What do you mean, not Cashel? She asked. Saren's glowing eyes met hers. I am a remnant of what came before. The Cashel were once individuals, free to think and choose, but the hive mind consumed them one by one, until nothing remained but the collective. I escaped. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. You know how to defeat them, Ellen said, her voice steady. Saren hesitated. The collective's strength is its unity. It is also its weakness. Sever the link and they will falter. But to sever it, you must reach the core. The core? Ellen asked. The Kashel's heart, Saren explained. A central nexus buried deep beneath the first terraforming spire in what you call New York City. It controls the network, binding all K-shell together. Destroy it, and the hive will collapse. Ellen's mind raced. This was the breakthrough they needed, but it came with impossible risks. The New York Spire was the largest and most heavily guarded of all the alien installations. Why help us? She asked, narrowing her eyes. Saren's expression was unreadable. Because the collective must not spread. If it consumes your world, it will grow stronger. And there will be nothing left in this galaxy to stop it. The fragile alliance was born that day. Saran provided critical intelligence, mapping the Kashel's defenses and revealing weaknesses in their technology. In return, Ellen and the Resistance agreed to launch a daring mission, infiltrate the New York Spire, reach the core, and destroy it. As they prepared for the mission, tensions ran high. Many in the Resistance didn't trust Saran, seeing him as just another alien invader. But Ellen stood firm, driven by the belief that this was humanity's only chance. This is our fight, she told the Resistance leaders. But it's a fight we can't win alone. We have to take the risk. The New York mission was set. It would be the most dangerous operation humanity had ever attempted, and its success, or failure, would determine the fate of the world. The night of the mission was cloaked in an unnatural stillness, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The Resistance's forces were spread thin, leaving only a skeleton crew to defend the remaining hideouts. All efforts were focused on infiltrating the New York Spire. Ellen Marquez stood on the deck of the stolen alien transport, staring at the horizon. The once iconic skyline of New York City was unrecognizable, replaced by towering alien structures that glowed with an ominous green light. The largest spire, the Core Nexus, rose from the ruins of Manhattan like a blade piercing the heavens. Inside the transport, the strike team prepared. Engineers checked equipment, soldiers loaded weapons, and Saran worked quietly in the corner, interfacing with a holographic map of the spire. Listen up, Ellen said, addressing the team. This isn't just about destroying the core. If we succeed, the Kashel will collapse, but they'll take everything with them. The city, maybe even the planet. We need to get in, plant the charges, and get out. Fast. Saran's metallic voice cut through the room. The core's defenses are formidable. The collective will sense your presence the moment you enter. There will be no second chances. Then we make the first one count, said Commander Bishop, the team's leader. His voice carried a steely resolve, but the tension in the room was palpable. As the transport approached the spire, the air grew thick with a green mist. The spire's energy field crackled, distorting the sky like a warped lens. Saren adjusted the transport systems, generating a shield to mask their approach. We're in, Saren announced, but the field won't hold for long. Prepare to disembark. The transport landed in the shadow of the spire, its sleek form blending into the alien architecture. The team moved swiftly, guided by Saren's map. The ground beneath them was alive with pulsating veins of energy, and the air vibrated with the hum of the core. The spire's entrance was guarded by Kashel drones, their insect-like forms patrolling in perfect synchronization. Saren extended a hand, emitting a pulse that temporarily disrupted their network. Go, he said. The team slipped inside, their movements precise and silent. The interior of the spire was a labyrinth of glowing corridors and shifting walls, each turn revealing more of the Kashel's biomechanical designs. "This place is alive," Bishop muttered, his eyes scanning the walls. Ellen focused on the map, her heart pounding. The core was deep within the spire, encased in a chamber designed to repel any intruders. Halfway to the core, the team encountered resistance. Ka-shell drones swarmed the corridors, their glowing eyes and razor-sharp limbs making them formidable opponents. The strike team fought back with everything they had, using alien-enhanced weapons to hold the line. Ellen stayed behind cover, her breath ragged as the battle raged around her. She glanced at Saren, who stood in the middle of the chaos, emitting pulses of energy that disrupted the drones. "Keep moving," Bishop shouted, leading the team forward. The closer they got to the core, the stronger the resistance became. The Ka-shell seemed to sense their intent, their movements becoming more erratic and desperate. Finally, they reached the core chamber. The room was massive, its walls lined with pulsating tendrils of energy. In the center, the core hovered, a sphere of light so bright it was almost blinding. The hum it emitted was deafening, resonating deep within Ellen's chest. "This is it," she whispered. The team set to work, planting charges around the chamber. Saren interfaced with the core, his form glowing faintly as he disrupted its defenses. But then, the chamber shook violently. "They know we're here," Bishop shouted. "Drones incoming." The team braced for another fight as the walls of the chamber seemed to come alive, shifting and pulsing with alien energy. Ellen's hands trembled as she armed the detonator, her mind racing. "Almost done," Saren called out, his voice strained. "But we need more time." Time was the one thing they didn't have. The walls of the core chamber rippled like liquid metal as the Ka-shell drones poured in, their glowing eyes fixed on the strike team. The room erupted in chaos, the hum of the core rising to a deafening pitch. "Hold them off!" Bishop roared, his weapon spitting bursts of energy that tore through the first wave of drones. Ellen crouched behind a column, clutching the detonator. Around her, the team fought with relentless determination, but the Ka-shell were unyielding, their movements impossibly precise. Saren stood near the core, his metallic form glowing as he interfaced with the sphere. "The core is resisting me," he said, his voice strained. "It knows what you intend to do." Ellen scrambled to his side, her heart pounding. "What do you mean it knows? It's a machine." "It is more than that," Saren replied, his glowing eyes flickering. "The core is the nexus of the collective. It is aware, and it will not allow itself to be destroyed without a fight." As if in response, the core's light intensified, and a wave of energy erupted from its surface, knocking several team members to the ground. The drones seemed invigorated by the surge, their attacks growing fiercer. "We're not going to make it," one of the soldiers shouted as another fell under the swarm of drones. Ellen's mind raced. They were running out of time. The charges were set, but the detonator required a manual override. Someone had to stay behind to activate it. "Bishop," she called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Get the team out of here." "What?" Bishop spun around, his face pale. "You're not seriously—" "Go!" Ellen shouted, her voice firm. "You're the only one who can lead them back. Get everyone out now." Bishop hesitated for a moment, then nodded reluctantly. "You heard her," he barked to the remaining soldiers. "Fall back." As the team retreated, Ellen turned to Saren. "Can you stabilize it long enough for me to trigger the detonator?" Saren's glowing eyes met hers, unreadable. "Perhaps, but you will not survive." "I'm not leaving until this thing is destroyed," Ellen said, her voice steady. Saren hesitated, then placed a hand on the core. "I will do what I can." The chamber shook violently as the core fought back, its energy lashing out in unpredictable waves. Saren's form flickered, his connection to the core straining under the pressure. "Ellen!" he shouted. "The collective is aware of you. It knows your thoughts, your fears. It will try to manipulate you." Ellen gritted her teeth, clutching the detonator tightly. She could feel the core's presence in her mind. A cold, calculating force that probed her memories, her emotions. "Why fight?" a voice whispered, echoing in her thoughts. "You cannot win. Join us, and your suffering will end." She shook her head, trying to block it out. "I won't let you take us," she muttered. The core's light flared, and the voice grew louder. You are already part of us, Ellen Marquez. Humanity's fate is sealed. No, Ellen shouted, slamming her fist against the detonator. Saren's voice broke through the noise. Now, Ellen, activate it now! She pressed the override and the charges detonated in a blinding flash of light. The chamber erupted in fire and energy, the core screaming in protest as its tendrils were torn apart. Ellen felt herself being lifted off her feet, the force of the explosion ripping through the chamber. Her vision blurred, and the last thing she saw was Saren standing tall, his glowing form shielding her from the full brunt of the blast. The world faded to black. Ellen awoke to the sound of distant waves and the faint hum of machinery. Her body ached, every nerve screaming in protest as she struggled to sit up. Around her, the ruins of the core chamber lay silent, its once pulsing energy now extinguished. The air was thick with smoke and ash. The charges had done their job. The core was gone, and the chamber was collapsing in on itself. Bishop. Saran? She called out, her voice weak and hoarse. There was no answer. She pushed herself to her feet, leaning against a jagged pillar for support. The walls of the chamber shuddered, chunks of metal and debris crashing to the ground. Time was running out. Ellen, a faint voice called. She turned to see Saran, his metallic form flickering and broken. His glowing eyes dimmed as he leaned against a fragment of the core's remains. Saran, you're alive. Barely, he said, his voice strained. The collective, it is fragmented. The core's destruction severed its connection, but it is not gone. Ellen's heart sank. What do you mean? We destroyed it. Saran nodded weakly. You destroyed this nexus, but the collective spans across galaxies. This was only a part of its reach. They will return. The ground beneath them trembled violently, and Ellen knew they had to leave. We need to get out of here, she said, grabbing his arm. Saren shook his head. I cannot go. My connection to the collective is too weak. I would not survive the journey. No, Ellen said firmly. I'm not leaving you here. You must, Saren replied, his voice soft. You are humanity's hope now. You've shown them that the collective can be hurt, that they are not invincible. Take that knowledge and prepare for what comes next. Tears welled in Ellen's eyes, but she knew he was right. Thank you, Saren, she whispered. For everything. Saren's eyes glowed faintly one last time. Go, Ellen Marquez. Live to fight another day. Ellen turned and ran, her heart heavy as the chamber collapsed around her. She barely made it out as the entire spire crumbled, a deafening roar filling the air. The sky above was clear, the green mist gone. Outside, the resistance forces waited. Bishop and the remaining soldiers rushed to her side as she emerged from the rubble. You did it, Bishop said, his voice filled with disbelief. Ellen nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. The other spires around the world were crumbling, their energy fading. The Ka-Shell drones, cut off from the collective, stood motionless, their glowing eyes extinguished. For the first time in months, the world was quiet. But Ellen's mind was far from at ease. Saran's words echoed in her thoughts. They will return. The days following the battle were a blur of activity. The resistance forces worked tirelessly to assess the damage, rebuild communications, and provide aid to the countless displaced survivors. Ellen found herself thrust into a leadership role, her actions in New York making her a symbol of hope. But with that hope came immense pressure. The Ka-Shell are still out there, she told the gathered resistance leaders during a meeting. This was a victory, but it wasn't the end. We need to be ready when they come back. How long do we have? Bishop asked. Ellen shook her head. I don't know. Months, years, decades, but they will come. And next time, they'll be ready for us. The resistance began to shift its focus. Scientists and engineers worked to reverse engineer what remained of the Ka-Shell technology, hoping to create weapons and defenses capable of countering the collective. Ellen, however, couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something. She spent hours poring over Saran's notes and the fragments of the core, searching for answers. One night she discovered something chilling, a hidden frequency within the core's remains. It was faint but persistent, like a heartbeat. She played the signal through the lab speakers and her blood ran cold. We are not finished, The Kashal were still out there and they were watching. Ellen brought the discovery to the Resistance leadership, her face pale. "The Kashal are already rebuilding," she said. "They're using this signal to reconnect their fragmented collective." "How do we stop it?" Bishop asked. Ellen hesitated. "We need to track the signal to its source. If we can disrupt it, we might be able to delay their return, but it won't be easy." The Resistance scrambled to assemble a team capable of the mission. The signal originated deep in space, far beyond Earth's reach. To follow it, they would need to repurpose the stolen alien transport into a long-range vessel. It was a daunting task, but the stakes were too high to ignore. Ellen volunteered to lead the mission, despite protests from Bishop and the others. "This is our only chance," she said. "If we don't stop them now, we might not get another opportunity." As preparations began, Ellen couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger battle. The alien transport had been transformed into a vessel capable of interstellar travel. With its biomechanical systems enhanced by human ingenuity, it was Earth's first and only hope of reaching the source of the Kashal signal. Ellen Marquez and her hand-picked team of scientists, engineers, and soldiers boarded the vessel. The crew was small but determined, each member fully aware of the stakes. If they succeeded, they might delay the Kashal's return. If they failed, Earth would face annihilation. The launch was quiet and unceremonious. The battered remnants of the Resistance gathered to watch the ship ascend, their eyes filled with both hope and fear. As the transport broke through Earth's atmosphere, Ellen couldn't help but look back at the planet below. The scars of the invasion were visible even from space. Vast, darkened patches where cities once stood, and the faint metallic glint of alien spires that still dotted the landscape. "We'll fix it," she whispered to herself. One way or another. The journey through space was unlike anything Ellen had experienced. The ship's biomechanical systems responded to the crew's thoughts and emotions, creating an eerie sense of connection. The vessel seemed alive, its walls pulsating softly as if breathing. Saran's modifications to the ship's navigation system proved invaluable. The signal grew stronger as they ventured deeper into uncharted space, guiding them toward a massive derelict structure orbiting a distant star. When they arrived, the crew stared in awe. The structure was enormous, a network of metallic tendrils and pulsating energy fields. It was clearly Kashal in origin, but it looked ancient, worn down by time and battles long forgotten. "This is it," Ellen said, her voice a mix of wonder and dread. The source of the signal. The ship docked cautiously, its systems scanning the structure for threats. The crew disembarked, their boots echoing against the hollow metallic floor. The air inside was thin and cold, and the faint hum of the signal reverberated through the walls. As they ventured deeper, they encountered remnants of Kashal drones, motionless, their glowing eyes extinguished. The sight was unsettling, a reminder of the collective's reach and power. At the heart of the structure, they found the source of the signal, a massive crystalline node, similar to the core but smaller and less stable. It pulsed erratically, sending out bursts of energy that seemed to resonate with the crew's thoughts. "This is it," Ellen said, stepping forward. "If we can shut this down, we might buy Earth some time." The team began setting up their equipment, working quickly to disrupt the node. But as they worked, the node's light intensified, and the air grew heavy with tension. "Something's happening," one of the engineers said, his voice trembling. Ellen felt it too, a presence, vast and overwhelming, pressing against her mind. "You cannot stop us," a voice boomed, echoing through the chamber. "The collective is eternal. Your resistance is meaningless." The team froze as a figure emerged from the node. It was a Kashal, but unlike any they had seen before. Its form was massive and imposing, its glowing eyes filled with malice. "Defend the node!" Ellen shouted, grabbing her weapon. The chamber erupted into chaos as the Kashal entity attacked. The crew fought valiantly, but the entity was relentless, its every move calculated and precise. Ellen's mind raced. They were outmatched, but they couldn't leave the node intact. She reached for the detonator, her hands shaking. "Get out of here," she shouted to the team. "I'll finish this." "No way," Bishop replied, firing at the entity. "We're in this together." The team held their ground, buying Ellen precious seconds to arm the explosives. With a final, desperate push, Ellen activated the detonator. The node exploded in a blinding flash of light, the shockwave tearing through the chamber. The Kashal entity screamed, its form disintegrating as the structure began to collapse. "Move," Ellen shouted, leading the team back to the ship. They barely made it out as the structure imploded, its remains consumed by the energy of the exploding node. As the ship sped away, Ellen watched the destruction through the viewport, her heart heavy. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The crew's return to Earth was anything but triumphant. The destruction of the node had severed one of the Kashal's communication hubs, but it had also drawn their full attention. The signal that had once been faint now blared across the galaxy, a call to arms that would bring the collective's full might to Earth. Ellen Marquez knew there was no time to celebrate. The mission had bought them only a brief reprieve, and the resistance had to act quickly. "Whatever's coming will be worse than anything we've seen," she told the gathered leaders in their underground base. "The collective is furious, and they won't stop until we're gone." Bishop, his face lined with exhaustion, crossed his arms. "We barely made it through the first wave. How are we supposed to stop them now?" Ellen gestured to the fragments of Kashal technology salvaged from the node. "We've learned their weaknesses. The collective depends on unity. If we can disrupt their hive mind again, even for a short time, we might stand a chance." The resistance began working around the clock, using every resource they had to prepare for the impending invasion. Engineers developed weapons capable of emitting pulses that could destabilize the Kashal drones. Scientists worked to create shields that could repel their energy attacks. As the preparations continued, Ellen felt the weight of her decisions pressing down on her. The crew of the orbital mission had barely survived, and the losses they'd suffered haunted her. But there was no time for doubt. "Captain Marquez," Lopez said, approaching her in the command center. "We've picked up something. You need to see this." Ellen followed Lopez to the communications hub, where a holographic display showed a massive object entering the solar system. "It's them," Lopez said. "A mothership, 10 times the size of anything we've seen before." The room fell silent as the display zoomed in on the ship. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, and its size dwarfed Earth's moon. Ellen's heart sank. "How long do we have?" 3 days, Lopez replied. "Maybe less." The resistance scrambled to prepare for the final battle. Civilians were evacuated to underground bunkers, and what remained of Earth's military forces were mobilized. The atmosphere was tense, every person acutely aware of the stakes. As the mothership approached, it became clear that this wasn't just an invasion. It was an extermination. The Kashal intended to wipe Earth clean, leaving no trace of humanity behind. Ellen stood before the resistance forces, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. "We've fought them before and we've won. This time will be no different. We may be outnumbered, but we're not outmatched. Remember, they rely on fear and control. If we stand together, we can break them." The soldiers cheered, their resolve bolstered by her words. But Ellen knew this battle would push them beyond their limits. The mothership entered Earth's orbit, casting a shadow over the planet. From its underbelly, thousands of smaller ships descended, their energy beams scorching the ground. The final battle had begun. The skies over Earth turned into a battlefield as resistance forces engaged the Kashal swarm. Fighter jets and alien transports clashed with the invaders, their weapons lighting up the darkness. On the ground, the resistance deployed their new technology, pulse weapons that disrupted the Kashal drones, leaving them vulnerable to conventional attacks. Ellen led the charge from a mobile command center, coordinating strikes and issuing orders. "Focus fire on their formations. Don't let them regroup." The battle raged for hours, the resistance fighting with everything they had. Cities burned, the air thick with smoke and the acrid scent of destruction. But despite their efforts, the Kashal's numbers were overwhelming. The mothership remained untouched, its massive energy field repelling all attacks. "We're not making a dent," Bishop shouted over the comms. "We need to take out that shield." Ellen's mind raced. The mothership was the key, but it was protected by layers of defenses. They needed a way in, a way to disrupt the shield from the inside. Then she remembered Saren's words. "The core is the nexus. If the mothership housed a central core, Destroying it could disable the collective permanently. "I'm going in," Ellen said, her voice resolute. "No way," Bishop protested. "It's suicide." "It's our only chance," she replied. "If we don't take out that core, this planet is finished." Gathering a small team, Ellen boarded a stolen Kashal transport. As the battle raged around them, they ascended toward the mothership, its shadow looming over the chaos below. The ship's defenses targeted them immediately, beams of energy slicing through the air. Ellen's team barely managed to evade, their ship rattling with every near miss. "Hold it together," she shouted as the transport breached the mothership's shield. Inside, the ship was a labyrinth of glowing corridors and shifting walls. The core's energy pulsed through every surface, its presence almost overwhelming. "We're close," Ellen said, her voice tense. But the Kashal weren't going to let them succeed. Drones swarmed the corridors, their attacks relentless. The team fought bravely, but one by one, they fell. By the time Ellen reached the core chamber, she was alone. The massive sphere of light pulsed before her, its hum deafening. "This is for all of us," she whispered, activating the detonator. The rebuilding of Earth was slow but determined. Cities were no longer monuments to unchecked expansion, but symbols of resilience and cooperation. The scars of the invasion remained, a reminder of the cost of survival, but humanity had learned to adapt. In a bustling plaza in what was once New York City, now renamed Unity Square, children played beneath the towering monument of Ellen Marquez. Her likeness was carved into the stone, her eyes gazing upward toward the stars she had dared to defy. Bishop stood in the crowd, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He had taken Ellen's words to heart, dedicating himself to uniting the fractured remnants of Earth's population. The resistance was no longer a desperate army, but a global coalition, committed to rebuilding and preparing for the future. In the shadow of the statue, Lopez handed Bishop a tablet. "The final reconstruction plans," she said. Bishop glanced at it before looking back at the children playing. "We'll rebuild stronger," he said. "And when they come back, if they come back, we'll be ready." Above, in the night sky, a faint streak of light shot across the stars. Some said it was a comet. Others claimed it was debris from the mothership. But Bishop liked to think it was Ellen, still watching over them. Far beyond Earth, in the cold void of space, fragments of the Kashal mothership drifted aimlessly. Among the wreckage, a single shard of the core floated, its faint light pulsating rhythmically. The shard was small, no larger than a human heart, but its energy was immense. It sent out a single signal, faint but deliberate, cutting through the silence of the galaxy. In a distant star system, the signal was received. A massive structure, dormant for millennia, began to stir. Tendrils of light spread across its surface, reactivating ancient systems. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed within the structure. "The collective endures. Adaptation is inevitable." Back on Earth, Ellen's legacy stood as a beacon of hope, but in the far reaches of space, a new threat was awakening, one that would challenge humanity in ways they could scarcely imagine. The war wasn't over. It was only the beginning. Years after the Kashal invasion, humanity had risen from the ashes. Cities flourished, reimagined with a blend of human ingenuity and fragments of Kashal technology. Yet, despite the peace, the faint echoes of the invasion lingered. In a remote lab in the Andes, a team of scientists worked tirelessly to study a single fragment of the core, recovered from the battlefield where Ellen Marquez made her final stand. The shard pulsed faintly, its energy consistent and rhythmic, as if alive. Dr. Cale Rosner, the lead scientist, had dedicated his life to understanding the shard's mysteries. The shard seemed to react to thoughts, emotions, and even the surrounding environment. Rosner's team believed it could revolutionize energy production, medicine, and even communication, but its origins haunted them. One fateful night, as Rosner worked alone in the lab, the shard emitted a blinding burst of light. Instruments went haywire, and the room filled with an eerie hum. Rosner's mind was flooded with visions, images of distant galaxies, massive Kashal structures, and something else, a new force. When the light faded, Rosner staggered back, his heart racing. The shard lay dormant again, but its message was clear. "They're searching for it," he whispered, his voice trembling. "They're coming back." Rosner knew the shard couldn't remain on Earth. It was a beacon, and if it stayed, it would bring the Kashal to humanity's doorstep once more. Quietly, he began preparations to send the shard into deep space, hoping to lead the collective away from Earth. As the shard's container ascended into the stars, Rosner stood on the observation platform, a mix of hope and dread in his heart. He had saved Earth for now, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the Kashel's reach extended far beyond what anyone could imagine. In the aftermath of the invasion, Earth's military forces were left fractured and disorganized. Veterans of the Kashel War struggled to reintegrate into a world that barely understood what they had endured. Among them was Commander Bishop. Bishop had become a symbol of resilience, his leadership during the battle inspiring countless others. Yet he felt like an outsider in the new world. His thoughts often drifted to those he had lost, especially Ellen Marquez, whose sacrifice weighed heavily on him. One day, while visiting a war memorial, Bishop met a young woman named Lila, a historian documenting the invasion. She was eager to hear his story, to understand the human cost of the war. "You won't find what you're looking for in statues and records," Bishop said, his voice gruff. "The real story is in the people who survived." Lila convinced Bishop to join her on a journey to meet survivors across the globe. Together, they interviewed soldiers, scientists, and civilians, gathering accounts of bravery and loss. The project became a book, The Forgotten Soldiers, which reignited the world's appreciation for those who had fought to save it. Through this work, Bishop found a sense of purpose. He couldn't change the past, but he could honor it, ensuring that the sacrifices made during humanity's darkest hour were never forgotten. In the wake of the Kashel's defeat, nations came together like never before. The scars of the invasion had shown humanity the fragility of division and the strength of unity. The United Nations was restructured, now called the Global Coalition for Defense and Progress, GCDP. Its mission was simple: to protect Earth from future threats and to advance humanity's understanding of the universe. Ellen Marquez's name became synonymous with this new era. Her statue stood at the GCDP's headquarters, a constant reminder of the price of survival. Beneath it, an inscription read, "United, we rise. Divided, we fall." The GCDP launched an initiative to explore the remnants of the Kashel technology left behind. Scientists reverse-engineered alien devices, creating advancements in medicine, energy, and transportation. Earth's defenses were bolstered, with satellites and orbital platforms forming a protective grid around the planet. But the greatest achievement was the construction of the Unity Fleet, Earth's first interstellar armada. The fleet was a testament to humanity's ingenuity and determination, built not only for defense but for exploration. Ellen's dream of reaching the stars lived on through these ships. As the fleet's flagship, Ellen Marquez, launched on its maiden voyage, the people of Earth watched with a mix of pride and anticipation. Humanity was no longer a fractured species. They were a force to be reckoned with, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.